Agent Thornton is at home. But a home disturbed by the presence of a heart. Heart with no sign of human host. Heart he discovered in his refrigerator. The clock is ticking, each tick presumably bringing help and harm closer to the cold and empty home, not far from the Harvard campus. Two men calling themselves pages, thinking of themselves as pages to your night, have dropped everything and are rushing to assist you in dealing with the very real threat which you believe is coming to tangle with you again. The threat, of course, being Mickey O'Shaughnessy, who in his, shall we say, living days, went by the name of the Fist, but has now been revealed to be so much more than just a human mobster or boxer or gangster, but somehow is more than human, but might be, if Xavier Morgan's description is correct, who might also be something less than human. Steve Alwell, when found, was missing a heart. Is this his heart here to taunt you? Has Mickey been carrying it around since the murder? Or has someone else been murdered to make a point? It's daytime on your quiet street. The men are at work. The housewives are at home. Few houses are empty. Children are in school. Clouds scud across the mostly gray November sky.
So in the front room with the sheer curtains, pulled across the front, triple pane bay window, keep an eye on the street, drinking coffee like a madman at this point, thinking of who I have been in contact with, if this isn't Steve's heart, which that's the first person that leaps to mind, who I may have been in contact with. Knowing that I had spoken with the professor, there's no way it could have been him. The only other person I can think of multiple people who kind of know a little bit about what I've been involved with. Washburn, York, the two police officers, and Madame Bouvier. Those are the only other three people I can think of that may have been in jeopardy, still having that idea that I am being watched. I know that someone was down the street, possibly, one night when I had left, but there's still this creeping sensation that Xavier knows my movements without people being present, that there's some kind of connection with this card and he and I. So I'm trying hard not to think of a plan that involves Xavier at any point in time. I'm not making notes. He's when he starts to come into my head and how I might have to address or take care of him, I try and shove those thoughts out of my head, thinking that he's in my head somehow. I'm hoping that Kyle will show up before Lou and Bud. I don't know exactly when the professor and his friends will arrive, but I would definitely, I'm definitely pacing, hoping that I can speak with Kyle before Bud and Lou get here. So even though I may be going in and out of the front room between getting coffee, I may sit down, get back up, looking out the window, going out into the front door, the little entryway hallway there, just so I'm not in the same spot all the time. Keeping the shears over the front door's window pane, which would be, it's a full door with the oval-shaped leaded glass in the front, no screen door, and just waiting. Both the 32 and the 45 are on my person. I'm not going to if someone does try and make a move on me between when anybody arrives and if they do show up, I don't want to be unarmed at any point in time.
On one of the many trips into the kitchen to refill the coffee cup, the crude note left presumably by Mickey is, curling in on itself. Right? The moisture from having been in the fridge to now being out on the table, causing it to hide its message of, I want it.
As kids, our mothers told us that if we did what we were told, stayed out of trouble, and looked to good men and women as role models to better ourselves, we could achieve the American dream. It's hard not to wonder now as the drought eats the heart out of the country and the dust delivers black blizzards and poor men beg for food while rich men fall from the sky. Did they know they were lying? Broken families, broken dreams, broken promises, moments of charity, holding off starvation for another day so that suffering can carve deeper marks in the rag-clad children of destitute parents cowering in confusion in the shadows of well-heeled shot callers for the gangsters and politicians, with the police taking money from both to keep the peace. Keep your nose clean. Keep it to the grindstone. Keep it out of others' business. The words of our mothers echo down the streets lined with ragged folk with tin cups praying for soup. Can anyone turn this free fall into flight? Is there an answer out there that brings sense to madness? Or do we keep swimming our way toward Asculum?
Grabbing a kitchen towel, I'm going to take the note, cover it up, wrap it up stuff it into my pocket. I've got my dress pants on, suspenders on, top collar, top button undone on the shirt, Suspenders are, kind of flopped off. I'm not wearing them up over my shoulders. Grab the heart, look for go through my cabinets, pull out a cake dish, an opaque white, porcelain style cake dish with cover that up, double check, make sure that I cleaned up. If there was any blood in the refrigerator, double check, make sure that was cleaned. And I start to look for signs of an entry, why I wouldn't have thought about that to start out my day with before making calls. I'm not exactly sure. But then I all of a sudden remember, if he really wanted to get in my house, kind of break out into a cold sweat, he could get into my house at any point in time and not have to worry about a window. I start second guessing my rationale of what I had seen, the experience I'd had, my hands kind of at my neck, go back to the front room, and just still constantly the nervousness, the edginess, still waiting for a car to pull into the front driveway.
You hear the sound of a car slowing down, and with a squeal of brakes and springs coming to a halt.
Coffee cup to the Formica tabletop, striding towards the front door, right hand's going back behind my back, on the 45, up to the front door, just kind of pull the sheer a little bit so I can have a clear view,
It's Kyle.
Good.
With a very long hunting bag.
Okay.
Suitable for a long gun of some kind.
Unlock the door, wait until he's kind of like almost ready to get there, and then not abruptly, but as he's within about a yard from the front door, slowly start to pull the door open and just go ahead and come on in. I'm glad you showed up first.
You live here by yourself?
Yep, have for quite some time.
That's more hopeful than I would have thought. Kind of brushes his way by.
Walking him back to the kitchen. I'm going to make sure the front door is locked. Walking him back to the kitchen. It's not all on salary. Trust me. As good as I do. Treasury agents don't get paid that much. As I'm kind of looking around and say, a lot of this is all family money, but I don't choose to live in the high rise like my dad does.
Okay.
Get him in. I kind of point over at the coffee pot on the stove. Say, if you ready for a cup, if you want one, there's. I open the door to the refrigerator myself and kind of reach in, grab the bottle of milk, kind of put that on the table. Say, if you like cream, sugar, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Before I really get started. Huh?
I can take care of it.
All right. I'm not used to having guests in my house. I'm kind of a little bit of a private person, as you might have heard around the office. But
well, surprisingly clean. For a bachelor, you're breaking all the stereotypes.
Well, you can thank my mother for that. Picking up my cup of coffee from the table, giving it a little refresh to heating it back up. So in one of our conversations, you had mentioned that you went to, what was it, Miskatonic University?
Is that a Harvard thing to not remember the name of the university?
Well, no, it's not that. I kind of shake my head. It's not. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, but I went to Miskatonic.
How unusual were your classes? What kind of hard studies did you really graduate with?
I think it's an accredited school. My parents were pretty pleased I could go there. I was pleased I could go there.
And remind me again, what was your major? Law?
Yeah, law. Although I decided not to practice. I decided to practice enforcement.
I kind of look at the fridge and kind of mutter the word enforcement.
But I started out in religious studies. It changed my mind.
What disinterested you in religion?
Well, as soon as I started learning about them.
Kind of walking over towards the refrigerator. You managed to piece anything together at the office from what little information we do have about Xavier, any of his comings and goings, his organization, the Morgan Company?
Okay, not a lot. Because mostly it was sorting through Mount Bill. There is a legally registered Morgan company. There's also a legally registered holding company for Morgan Enterprises. So I'm going to say that somewhere on their payroll, they have of the right kind of business professionals to make sure that their taxes are paid, and the typical gangster mistakes are not made. I called around at City Hall. There's been a rash of purchases of things that were formerly O'Shaughnessy holdings. How legit these purchases are, considering that a lot of the people that would have been doing the selling are in bits and pieces in the morgue, is up for debate. But the paper trail seems to be pretty solid. So I think it would take an expert in real estate law and just large purchasing. Basically, they need an excellent accounting firm to be taking care of the money aspects, and they're going to be needing people with actual contract experience for these types of businesses. We've got shipping businesses, we have craft businesses of various types, carpentries, smithing, and this sort of thing. They've also been filing a large number of permits at City Hall for street repairs, housing repairs, additions, that kind of thing.
Well, if you've ever been down in that area, I mean, they're definitely doing a lot of work down there, so I can understand the permits. I'm kind of saying this as I'm walking over towards where the double wide kitchen sink is. Open up the
You've
kitchen
seen
cabinet.
it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Even the less legitimate buildings, like the ones we know that have illicit, or at least used to have illicit warehousing for O'Shaughnessy booze and for speakeasies, even these places are showing up in legitimate paperwork, and other permits are being filed for them. Like being fitted for gas if they don't have gas, and upgraded electricity, and filing petitions and things for upgrades to the sewer works and to the street lighting, and it's a major deal. It's a lot of money in fees.
That's what I was just going to say. This is a lot of money. So either Xavier has the money, or he's got other backers, investors, people who have similar interests as him. Opening the kitchen cabinet doors underneath the sink, pulling out the Gladstone bag and putting it down on the table, opening up, kind of saying, it's kind of funny that you mentioned he has the need for a good accounting firm. As I open the bag up, coffee on the table, pull out the book that Steve had given me. I said, this is a copy that Mr. Atwell had provided to me, which kind of kicked this whole thing off. And I've had some preliminary looks into it by my family's counting house, which also just so happens to be the accounting firm, which it looks like Xavier is going to be going with.
Right. We talked about that.
Yeah.
At Steve's house. And I think that's a very shrewd move if you should decide to arrest him for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, maybe kind of running my hands through my hair and saying, if he is keeping an eye on me, or if he does know a lot about me, I don't know of any dirt in my past that he could drag out into the news. Although that's not hard to fabricate. But like any good story, there's a complication, right? And I kind of turn, and right there where the refrigerator's at, open the door, grab the plate with the cake cover on it and put it down on the table, reach into my pocket, pull out the towel, unwrap the towel and put the note on the table, reach into the Gladstone bag, put the effigy on the note, and then I say, this shouldn't come as any surprise for you. You shouldn't have any problems with dismembered parts. And I take the cake cover off.
And he's saying, like, what's under the lid?
Yeah. So when I got home, and I'm sure some word may come around the office, I was at the hospital, right? You can see I've still got the bandage cover, around my neck. But when they were going to discharge me, they were going to discharge me to Danvers, which I wasn't going to have any guff with. I admit it's been very stressful. Well, you dabbled in religion. I dabbled in psychology. So I understand the reluctance to let someone in our position, someone in our field who could be under an immense amount of stress, both professionally and personally, just back out of the field. I've seen more than enough officers caught in a crossfire panic. And it was only going to be for a couple of days. I felt relatively safe going with them. But funny enough, somehow Xavier's people knew that this was happening. Now, there's going to be a couple of guys showing up here in a little while who they call themselves my pages. And I kind of go over to where the coat hook on the wall by where the kitchen door, you kind of walk out of the hallway into the kitchen, reach in, pull the tarot card out, put that on the table. And for a moment, white knuckle finger it there to make sure it stays in place. But I suspect this is Steve's heart. The note is from O'Shaughnessy. I could verify that because O'Shaughnessy Mickey was the one who attacked me. As crazy as my deposition may sound about what happened, I'm going to stick to my word that that's what happened. So somehow between the diner and here, either he kept the heart with him and came into my house still wanting the effigy and left this for me in my fridge. Now, these guys showing up, Bud and Lou, you'll get a kick out of them. There are a couple of goons, bruisers for sure. And I finally called the phone number that I knew was going to put me in contact with Xavier. Asked him a few questions. He said he has something, and I kind of make the air quotes, something that can undo this O'Shaughnessy, this Mickey the Fist, this Mickey the Ghost, as the kids called him out in front of his house. Now, what that is, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. There is a chance that maybe even after, hopefully before we take off to do whatever, because we're still going to have to figure out where Mickey is before we can really do anything.
He pulls out a seat, sits down at the table, puts the lid back over. His eyes and his head are moving around uncomfortably. Like, there's the lid. He knows there's a heart under the lid. There's the stone idol or effigy. There's the note. There's the fridge where the heart used to be. There's you with this crazy tale. There's the Gladstone bag, ammunition and notes. And there's nowhere that's safe to look. Yes. Got to tell you, Bill was pretty broken up when he came back from the hospital. And he didn't say anything to us other than that you'd been hurt. But I did, maybe this is a tale out of school, maybe it's not something I should say, but I did hear him say to the office manager that he had called for you to be sent to Danvers.
Taking a sip from my cup of coffee, just kind of shaking my head. I appreciate you telling me that, Kyle, but it's not gonna affect my trust in Bill's judgment. He's an older man. He's very experienced. I'm sure you've seen, his injuries, what he has to deal with. He knows what it's like to be in the field. That's for sure. I can't fault a man for being cautious, especially with the people under his care.
And with all of this, it's not really that cautious, I guess we should say.
No, it's not. I know it sounds crazy. So one of the people you hopefully will get to meet today is an old psychology professor of mine from Harvard. I've spoken with him when this whole shebang, really sent me for a loop. He was the first person I went to try and really get a grip on reality. And I, eyebrows raised and nodding my head. You can definitely understand my situation. I'm already in bad with the family. I don't want to jeopardize my inheritance. I'm already struggling at work. I don't want to jeopardize my job, even though, and admittedly, I'm sure you might agree with me on this, some of my decisions could be characterized as chaotic and unusual.
There are going to be questions from the police about you just pointing at the cake lid.
Well, right now, Kyle, you and I are the only ones that know about it, and I'd like to keep it that way.
That's what I mean.
So the only reason I asked you
kind
here,
of cutting to the windows. Yeah, the reason why you asked me here.
The only reason why I really asked you here is because, you really did show initiative at the office. You really do look like someone, behave like someone who wants to do the positive thing, the right thing, and have an impact on people.
You don't feel that
and
way
right
about
now,
police
that's the kind of person I need around me. I got a couple of days while my so-called body double is in
what
Danvers.
body double?
That's what was explained to me by Xavier, and that's the problem. There is someone at Danvers right now who is taking my place. What that really means, and I kind of coffee cup in hand, wave my hand as I'm standing by the sink down my body. I don't know exactly how double that is, but
And he's, at the window. There's a plumbing van.
So do me a favor if you would.
Yeah.
Head upstairs, take your bag. I start putting everything back in the fridge, wrap the note up, stuff that in my pocket. Just hang out.
You're going to go deal with the plumbers?
If it's who I think it is, this is probably Bud and Lou.
You're not concerned about your neighbors seeing you at home while there's, a legal and physical trail of you in the mental hospital at the exact same time?
Well, I've already come home.
Fair enough.
And as far as the news goes, unless it's been announced, which I would kind of be surprised. Would you rather
No.
greet them at the door?
No, I just if you know what, if you're interested in having the benefit of the doubt of not having been here, maybe I should answer the door. But otherwise,
All right. So as we're making our way to the door, I'm just going to kind of look at him, deadpan in the face and just say, I flat out, even though they say they're here to help, they're Xavier's men. I really don't trust them.
so maybe I should just go into this room over here rather than upstairs.
Be close, yeah, but stay out of sight for a little bit.
Okay.
So when he peels off, I'm same thing. I'm leaving the coffee in the kitchen, making my way to the front door, hand on the pistol grip, behind my back, peek out the front window and see who's getting out of the van.
It is indeed Bud and Lou, this time in full overalls that match the plumbing van. Same logos. And Bud goes to one of the side doors and takes out some large toolboxes. And Lou goes to the back doors of the van and slides out. Not too long, but like almost as an arm's breadth long package with carrying straps, which he kind of awkwardly pulls over his shoulder.
Wait for him at the front door. I'm going to let it the activity behave as it normally would. Let them knock, then open the door.
And, Lou just deadpans. I believe you have requested some assistance with a problem with your pipes.
Well, come on in. I'll walk him into the front room. Just tell him that you can just go ahead and put your bags down anywhere in here. And kind of staring down at the bags, and then back up at Lou. Do you have any instructions from our mutual friend?
Yeah, and I sure hope that you'll be the one that can understand them.
Fire when ready, Grizzly.
Well, Mr. Morgan is not of the opinion that Mickey can be dealt with in a purely pugilistic manner.
Nodding my head. Mm-hmm.
Neither would he recommend a reenactment of the OK Corral.
Neither would I. Not exactly the way I wanted it to go.
To that end, he has entrusted into our care, and thereby yours, a device.
Can you show it to me? I kind of look at the bags. I'm assuming it's in there.
We will have to assemble it, and hopefully we will complete assembly before we need to use it.
Do we need to take the device with us to a different location? Do we need to confront him somewhere, or?
We feel that he will be coming for you.
Kind of looking around the front room, where do you think the best place to set something like this up is? It sounds like you're a little bit more familiar with it than I am.
We've been told when assembled it will be about this large. So perhaps your living room?
Okay. Kind of ask Bud, walk over by the coffee table, kind of move it out of the way so there's plenty of room kind of in the middle of the room, over the carpet and hardwood floor to go ahead and set it up.
He takes out a very large drop cloth. It's a nice floor.
It's cherry.
So he lays out some very simple tools. And Lou starts up again. If you're going to be the one to use the device, it will require some of your blood.
Really? Like how much of my blood? And I'm kind of moving off to the from the living room. There's an open doorway arch that kind of goes into a small dining area where I would believe that Kyle would be kind of positioned at. I'm just kind of moving towards that doorway to stand near it. And how soon?
Not much. And I believe this is so that no one else can use the device. And as soon as it's assembled, and then it will be ready to use.
Okay. Kind of watching them. I'm going to step back a little bit, so that I'm still seeing them in the living room, just on the other side of the dividing wall through the open doorway, kind of with my side eye off to the left to see where Kyle's at.
Were you listening to the news?
No, I've been a little occupied. I've had a few select people I've been needing to talk to that I've had to get in contact with.
There were news bulletins, there were news flashes that interrupt, our programs. And there was a young girl found murdered in Boston Common. And the police are baffled because she has no heart.
A little bit of a cold sweat breaking out. So I want you to know that we're not alone, that I have an errant here with me in the house.
Okay.
I hope that's okay. There may be other people who will be arriving later, although I don't know what time they may arrive.
We're not here to question you. We're here to help you, assist you in any way we can.
All right. Just not sure still exactly how Xavier and I really fit together.
Hasn't he told you? If you can imagine a world that is a better place, a world of Bud supplies satisfaction. Satisfaction. If you can imagine it, you can make it happen.
Proof is kind of in the pudding, boys. Do you need any coffee? But
Coffee would be great.
okay. I will move through the little dining area out through the other doorway, going into the hallway, going back to the kitchen, straight, the hallway coming straight down from the doorway, front door, move through there, kind of try and, kite Kyle with me back into the kitchen and grab a couple of mugs. And, as I back to him, as I'm pouring coffee, just say first impressions.
They seem nice.
They seem nice, yeah. They seem very well intentioned, loyal to a fault.
I found people that have suffered real hardship, who have honestly committed acts of real violence, often have better manners than people who haven't.
Picking the 2 cups of coffee up, and walking with him down the hallway towards the living room so that he can see, we'll kind of watch them for a little bit to put this device together. As we're going down the hallway, I kind of turn to him again over my right shoulder and mutter, in psychology, we have a word for that. They're called psychopaths.
Well, it doesn't sound like a very nice word.
They're often not very nice people. They may have good manners. They may behave well, but they're just not human or mentally like the rest of us. There's a certain barrier that they're more than willing to cross. And I kind of nod my head back towards the kitchen, go back into the front room, give them the cup of coffee and spend a little time, watching them put this thing together. Definitely unsure about the idea of the bloodletting, although some archetypes would tell me that this is some type of ritual, some type of way to connect an owner with an item. But that's all hooey. How can that really be? Still biding my time, waiting for potentially the professor to show up. And just every now and then giving, Kyle a nervous glance, just to kind of read the look on his face, to see what he thinks about what's going on in this living room, given the information that he has been told, the information he overheard them tell me about my slight connection with Xavier, their philosophy as it is, and just let him do his thing too, as an observer, a third party, what's going on here, because he has definitely not seen as much as I've seen it of everything that's gone on so far. He's kind of been in the loop, but I'm trying to not taint the well, as it were.
Right. So as you are able to see what mainly Bud has been working on, right? Lou's standing, passing parts, and Bud is kneeling, putting things together, right? And sometimes things don't work and they have to go back to the beginning, like retrace their steps a little bit. But what they are assembling is not exactly square. It's a frame of tubing, where if it were square, the corners would be crystalline, faceted globe, non-spherical globe, but globe-like object in some crystalline matter, which you cannot see through. It's not like a crystal ball, but it's faceted, both in terms of its surface, but also deep into the crystal. The light is being guided or refracted and internally reflected in unsettling ways, which give them many different colors. But the whole frame is not a cube, although maybe the closest shape we could tie it to would be a cube. But as the mind tries to line up those right angles, it slides away from it. If you look at the vertical supports, they seem to be straight up and down. But then when you look at the top shape, it seems to be somehow on an angle that doesn't match up with the length of those supports. And in the center, suspended by more of these tubes, is mainly a pyramidal shape with the base on top, resting on supports that don't quite seem to be matching up with those vertical support structures, or hanging from the top frame or rising up out of the bottom frame. It's just quite difficult to trace exactly how things are put together, and that distortion is very unsettling.
Stop drinking my coffee, staring at it. An outside observer would probably assume that I've gone slightly catatonic, staring at this apparatus. The shifting shape and the colors are all become very hypnotic. This almost opalescent skin that it has. I have no idea how much time will pass. I mean, I'm just kind of almost entranced, as it could be said.
So Lou is right up, face to face, says, Hey, Mr. Agent Thornton, it's okay. Have a seat. Here's your coffee.
Let him guide me. Trying to look around for the one grounding anchor that I have tried to establish for myself, and look around for Kyle.
Kyle's just a ways down the hall, right? And his back was to you in that moment, right? He was looking out the windows, the kitchen windows. And back. White as a sheet. Alex, you all right?
Still nerves from nearly going to Danvers, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to keep my eyes averted from looking at the thing for a while. Look at the carpet around it, look at the ceiling over it. Look at something solid, something real, concrete. Because at this point, I'm believing that whatever they have just putting together or continuing to put together is not part of the real world.
Bud makes his way over, still like crawling across the mat, right? With his bulk, maybe it's easier than standing up. He tentatively, reaches out like he's going to put a hand on your knee in a comforting way, but then just puts it on the arm of the chair. His huge hand. He's saying, all right, your tattoo empowers you to touch Mickey. And he shoots a look over to Lou, and Lou goes, yeah, empowers. Our tattoo enables us to seal the area.
Head tilted, sealed? Seal?
When he gives up, Lou takes over. Mickey and Malone are not confined to physical space. They can pass through walls.
Nodding my head at that statement, the first real thing it sounds like they've said to me that I can confirm.
We, as your pages, and not alone, and not separate from you, but we, as your pages, can hold them here, where physical objects are real to them.
Looking over the coffee table and look back at Lou and say, so did I make a mistake? And I look at Kyle. You know what I mean? If you're saying that do you know what I mean? If you're saying that if I can touch him and you can contain, is Kyle going to be in harm? Did I just put a good friend at risk?
The decisions are yours.
Look up at Kyle. Searching for the expression on his face. What is he trying to get he's hearing all this. I from my experience staring at this thing, I don't know how it's affected him, but I'm trying to read his expressions, read his body language, or wait for him. I kind of nod my head to try and get him to say something in response to what he's hearing and what he's seeing.
Hey, I might not have a tattoo like the rest of you, but I have a 30-06. I'm here now. I'm not going to leave.
Nod my head, looking at both Bud and Lou, alternatingly. How long do you think he's going to wait? Do you think he's going to come tonight?
Well, Mickey's not known for his patience. But
I'm going to try and get up.
Here's the thing.
Gotta sit back.
He must be subdued for us to put him in the device. When he's in the device, we can take him to Morgan.
I'm gonna try and get up from the sofa, leaving the coffee cup, off to the side where the coffee table has been moved to. I just kind of mutter out, I need to get some water. I got to have something else besides coffee right now. And head back to the kitchen. Glass out of the cabinet, kitchen sink, little water. Not going to open it, but I am going over to the refrigerator, kind of, hand across the top, leaning on it with my forearm, just kind of tapping on the front door with the rim of my glass and thinking about Steve. Just trying to imagine how he fit into all this, that he was probably taken advantage of, like most people have probably taken advantage of him in his life. He was a smart guy. He was a good guy. Tried to do the right thing. He might not have always been the strongest go-getter or the person to step to the front of the line, but he was always helpful. And really just kind of trying to doing the busy things that you would do to nervously pass the time, idly, even though the house is kind of straightened up, kind of tidy up the kitchen from the mess, clean the coffee pot out, get the stove, wipe the stove down,
Right. Very large Kyle is kind of always in the way.
Yeah. Now, conveniently, in here, the kitchen table is small because, you do have a small adjoining little dining room. So the table in here is very small, but yeah, it would still be, even for two people in here, it would be, we're playing Ring Around the Rosie around the table as he's scooting out of the way and I'm just kind of tidying it up. And I am, every now and then I am just kind of looking at him to assess what he sees is happening to me. I know just from, even though I'm not a psychoanalyst, from my classes, I'm using him as that mirror outside myself to try and stay grounded with everything that's happening.
He's making small talk. He keeps looking at the radio, but not turning it on. But Lou pokes his head in. Do you want to wrap your hands?
Do I need anything special? I'm kind of looking at my hands. Wrap my hands for what?
Subduing the fist without breaking your fists.
I got some tape downstairs in the basement.
You hear Bud, I'll get it. And then
downstairs
the house shakes.
Yeah. Downstairs in the corner room, corner area of the basement, you'll see it, bench sitting next to in the corner with a heavy bag hanging from the rafters in the basement.
You also hear a and then he's more thunder as he comes back up the basement stairs.
As we're kind of going through the motions of wrapping the hands and everything and kind of getting ready for this, I look at Kyle and say, they have a team at Miskatonic? Were you a sports guy?
No, I wasn't. I mean, track and field. For my first year, and then I got busy.
It has a tend to happen. You got to stick with it, as we're going through the motions of wrapping the knuckles up and layering the tape up just kind of staring at my hands and thinking about the drills running through my head with the Crimson team, you know, not being the lack of unfortunate timing, not being on the team to help start the club, but to kind of be there after it all began. And if it's Lou, whoever it is, Lou or Bud, you know, I'm kind of also watching their face too as they're going through the motions, trying to read something off of him. You know, is he really this calm? Is he looking for some sense that there could still be betrayal, even from this counterpoint, this counterpart? And does he really know what he's doing as we're wrapping the tape?
Well, you've had quite a few hours to observe Kyle in the house, and over an hour to observe Kyle in the house while Bud and Lou were there, and some of the strange things that they've said. Check.
If there's a sign, I'm definitely going to read it.
There's a way that people pretend to be calm. You know, like stiff features or overblown politeness or cracking jokes, these kinds of things. He doesn't have any of these tells. He actually seems... He's excited because something's obviously going to happen. But he's calm about it. He's not worried about it. He's not staring at you thinking that you're several bricks short of a load. He's activated his thing. He's alert.
Okay. Once we're finished with the tape and everything, kind of let Lou and Bud, you know, go back to doing whatever their business is. You know, clenching my hands and kind of over by Kyle. I say, I hope the long rifle isn't the only thing you brought. I mean, you still take rounds with a handgun, right? Okay.
So you fought this man before?
I tried to avoid fighting it. And I relay, you know, the situation, the hostage situation. And that's how I break it down as a hostage situation, walking in, seeing my aunt there, my uncle, you know, unconscious, leaning back in his chair, diffusing the situation, getting my aunt out of the room. I mean, really trying to break it down clinically as if I was given an instruction in a class to someone who really may or may not have been in this type of situation. So I'm kind of at first standing next to him, and then I'm moving around in front of him so that we're kind of face to face, you know, still clenching my hands, getting used to the tape and kind of trying to get him loosened up enough to where it's not squeezing the blood out of my fingers. And, you know, kind of tap him on the chest. And I said, that's when the problem happened, is when I showed him the tattoo. I didn't know it would set him off. It was a big risk to take. I thought it might level the playing field, but it really did give me an idea of his relationship and how bad things are with him and Morgan.
So, okay. I get it. I guess really what my question was, you're a boxer. He's famous for beating people to death with his fists. Are you guys in the same league?
He's a heavyweight. Well, used to be a heavyweight. If he does show up tonight, he won't look like a heavyweight, but he'll hit like one. I kind of turned my head a little bit, where there's probably still some yellowing, by the orbital, and say,
yeah.
I'm light, but he kind of caught me off guard. He wouldn't let me diffuse the situation. He was completely and totally in a rage.
So he punches hard. Is he faster than you? You got a speed advantage?
I got a little bit of speed on me. My agility is where I'm going to be best at. I mean, I can hit, but my chances of hitting on someone like that, and knowing what I've seen, I don't know how really effective it's going to be. I mean, I managed to clock him under the jaw to get his head to rock back so I could open him up for, a pinning, against the ropes like you would when I had him on the desk. But when he wouldn't calm down after I gave him a chance to and just kept attacking, that's when the gun came out. If it comes to a true stand-up fight where we're going to throw
How many
dukes
times
with
did you
each
shoot
other,
him?
twice before you ran out the wall.
And we're thinking he's just going to show up?
I kind of look around at the walls. If he can do something like that to get away, he could do something like that to get in.
Well, if your advantage is moving around, dancing, then it can't be in the kitchen.
No, it's either got to be in the dive. If it's going to be down here, which hopefully it will be. I don't know exactly what's going on with this device. Living room's got the biggest amount of space.
We can probably move some more furniture out.
Yeah. Make room in the dining room. Take some small stuff downstairs.
All right.
And as we start to turn to move back, I'm going to pivot back around and I'm going to put my hand on his chest and say, look, if things go south, you're to get the hell out of here.
Okay.
He just kind of, he's real snappy with his reply. Is it kind of, does it feel flippant or?
Little bit.
Okay. Sounds flippant. So then we make our way back out to the living room.
He hasn't asked about the tattoos. So, carrying armchairs and stuff out of the living room to make space.
So I still dressed the way I was, right? But probably by this point, the shirts come out. And I think I'm gonna have gone upstairs, suspenders off the pants, put a belt around, and get into an undershirt. Because if I'm going to need to move, I don't want to have anything too cumbersome that he could do a pullover on me if he wants to try and double me up and put me in a turtle position. As I'm changing, tattoo still in the same place, kind of left rib cage. Okay. Just want to check it. Central.
Rearing.
Sword raised high. Kind of looking down at the not fully, but just with it in kind of my purview. In the back of my head, I'm thinking about what Xavier had told me, how the White Knight always makes the first move, but I'm thinking to myself, a Black Knight's more than willing to break the rules.
It's November. It's getting on around supper time. Sky is darkening. From some of the windows, there's the reddish glow of sunset. Others, the deeper blue of evening.
To kind of give with the van out front, neighbors would have seen somebody come up to the house. If they were at home, front curtains drawn, main curtain on the door drawn. Any lighting in this room is going to be kind of kept to a minimum. Now that we've opened up the space, so we've got room to move. Starting to get that antsy feeling, bouncing on my toes a little bit. Still, reflexively clenching and unclenching the hands.
Right. Kyle is kind of taken up a position on a kitchen chair in the hallway with his 30-06 in hand, occasionally whistling tunelessly between his teeth, quietly.
Well, I know he's a guy who spent a lot of time on stakeout, so he can definitely while away the hours.
And Bud and Lou likewise have just, really relaxed. Lou's looking out one of the back windows. And Bud is looking at the fireplace and nodding his head, appreciating the woodwork kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the same. I mean, I can't help but fidget. I can't help but be antsy and be in motion.
Through it all, under it all, is this kind of low vibrating hum.
On one of my circuits, kind of around, stop by where Bud and Lou are at, you said it was going to need some of my blood. When does that happen?
Oh, anytime.
Preferably before he gets here, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
Is this something we should be doing?
You see the central part?
I try to look at it reluctantly.
Press your hand on top.
Nervously, tentatively reach out with my left hand and put it on top.
Okay. That vibrating hum you can now feel in your teeth and in your eye sockets and in the small bones of your ears. You can feel it vibrating your stomach, almost like nausea. And there's this slightest prick. In the left wrist and up and under the skin.
Yank my hand away. Looking at the wrist. I'm wearing no watch or anything. So
there is a little crystalline sliver in a vein which works its way in. No pain, no feeling.
So can I feel it? Rubbing my
You can
wrist.
Feel it, but you don't feel it.
But I don't feel it in my wrist. Interesting. Yeah, it's hard not to have, but it creeps across my face, that worrying sensation that I'm stepping over a line that I wouldn't have stepped over before. and thinking about what the comment I've made to Bill about how if everything goes well, I want to go to the bureau or but I don't know if they would even have any idea of something like this, for all the rumors that go around that department. Kind of looking at Bud, looking at Lou, thinking I can't succumb to that kind of devotion, complacency, thinking about how this is all very nonchalant for them. They're too accustomed to this. They're too acclimated to this. Go out to the hallway and just kind of look down and look at Kyle, trying to keep a hold of my anchor.
So you're carrying 2 guns?
45 and a 32. Pretty proficient with both.
How proficient when your hands are taped up?
Might be a little bit clumsy, kind of looking at my hands. The tape always makes your grip a little bit tight, but it's still constantly, at least every 15 to 20 minutes have been scrunching my hands to make sure I got enough movement in there. In the palm, it's going to feel loose, but the grip is what really is going to matter.
Okay. Well, if in your loose gripped, ill-advised use of a handgun in close quarters, should that, become necessary, and if you shoot me, I will probably shoot back. And he winks.
Looking down at the floor, kind of look back up at him and just say, at this point, like I said, if something breaks here, the house, Bud, Lou, whatever the hell that freaking device is, I give him the deadpan look again and say, you're to beat feet and get out of here. As far as I know, you haven't told anybody that you're down here, right? Those were the instructions.
I'm out with my girl.
My head kind of goes back and I almost laugh and I say, yeah, that date missed with Bill, and I walk back into the living room.
Without warning, Mickey's in the living room. Did he come through the wall? There's a flash, it's hard to tell. He's on you, screaming. Where is it? Body punches.
Try to, I mean, if it comes
dodge,
out of nowhere, I'm gonna
circle away.
Huh? Yeah.
Try to circle away.
A little bit out of character, but from what I've seen or know of him, is he a righty lefty?
Big right hand.
Big right hand. So as he's pops in, starts trying to lay on me with the body punches, I am circling tight to the right. I want to keep that right hand off angled and in front and stay around his elbow. So if he's going to try and get close, he can't get extension with me. But I'm going to try and position myself in for the kidneys and the back on the spine. I want to go onto his back.
All right, so you want to retain the ability to attack?
Yes.
Okay, so
because if I'm moving to his right, if he's facing me and I'm moving right-hand side, I'm going to be cocking my hand back to get my first opportunity to try and make a shot right in the middle of his back.
All right, so then we're not talking about dodge mechanically. We're talking about fist. Okay, so which is your opportunity to block. Okay, so you can roll your fist to try and negate his attack.
with precision and marking my line on an angle of incident, I'm going to block and subdue whatever he's throwing at me right now.
All right.
And mechanically speaking, that's an 09.
Good.
Not 10%, but
Yeah. So you're offline, right? Off his line of attack, right? And you are free to reply, should you choose.
okay. Yeah. And that's going to be a solid punch to the kidney.
All right. But his kidney's not there. He dances away from the blow, right? And his hands are in a nice position, right, for his response. Coming in, right, that big right hand. Looks like he wants to reacquaint himself with the bruise he left you with earlier.
This is going to be avoidance.
Okay.
But not a complete dodge. What I'm going to do is, since we've engaged before, it's going to be a lean back, settle back on the back foot, and I'm just going to try and get myself just out of his extension.
Okay.
That's easily done with a couple of inches to spare.
All right. So he's still saying, "Where is it?" Right? And he's circling in your living room. And Bud and Lou have stepped back like this up against the walls, and their mouths are moving, but you don't really hear over Mickey's breathing and cursing and right and inquiring as to the location of the effigy, right?
Try and lean in on him. Throw the weight back forwards as that right hand is, come full out to its extension. Except this time I'm going to try and follow down his arm towards his armpit with the left hand, where I don't know, unconsciously I'm doing it with my left, but I'm still thinking when's this device thing supposed to pop off? And if it's not going to do it, then I might as well. It's a connection, but it's not solid as what it would normally be. I mean, it's a success.
Well, that's your thought, as the left arcs out. But he misreads you and spins right into it.
Okay, I'll take it. D3 plus D4. 5 points. Trying to hit him in that sensitive nerve bundle right in his armpit.
Right. So he involuntarily, buckles down, and that's when the tongue comes out, right? And his articulate speech ends, right? And that vibrating hum takes on a sharper note.
Panicked from having felt what the tongue can do, as he's kind of buckled in, my hand is still kind of trying to slide out of his pit. Give him the boxer's rebuff where I'm going to bump the hips with him, left to right, and try and keep his body turning, away, and try and keep that tongue facing away from me. So again, this is going to be an attack, but a maneuver to try and move him so that I can get behind him. It's sloppy, but successful.
but somehow he just stays that little bit out of reach, like leaning over, right? Maybe it's the threat.
Yeah, still can't get away. Yeah.
Right, the threat of the tongue allows him to separate the distance, and then his left snakes out. On a beautiful collision course.
Still face to face. Left. This is a right hand blow.
Left.
Left.
He's able to, after the first bump, he's able to open up the range a little bit, and he slipped towards your left and is coming in with his left, meaning the right is still waiting.
I'll extend the distance between us. Open the room up a little bit more. Back towards the archway going out into the hallway where the entryway is, right? Going back to the kitchen.
Right, where Kyle is.
Yeah. Hop, skip, and a jump. That's a easy 05.
All right, nice. Opens his hands, full flying tackle towards you down the hallway.
Well, this would be he's coming out of the living room. So what would be behind me is the Bear Stearns stairwell going up. So Kyle's going to get the side view as he would be coming flying out of the. Okay. I mean, if I'll try and get out of the way and let him hit the stairwell.
Yeah, this would be dodge in this case.
No. So
right.
A little sloppy footed stumble step, but I just don't manage to get out of the line of fire. So he's gonna, yeah.
Now the impact, the weight of his body doesn't feel like that of a grown man, and maybe it's your adrenaline, maybe it's the sunset, but it's almost like parts of him are half in you and half out of you. And then you both collapse down on the floor, right? And he's going for a hold, right? He wants to bind you up, and that tongue is, right? This sinuous tongue is twisting, and it's just above your face, right? And he's reared back, right? As he's going to sink his hooks in under your pits, right? And that tongue is going to lance down somewhere unpleasant. This needs to be resisted with grapple.
Knew I should have went to the wrestling team too. I mean, it's terrible. I'm out of my element. My hands are basically, it's too close. So it's a sloppy kind of trying to, I know Kyle's here. So if he's on top trying to press down and grapple in, my goal now is to just try and slap or get his head up away from my face to turn it upwards. But my hands are sliding all over the place. I can't get a grip on him. The tongue is panicking me. Is it going to hit my arm? Is it going to hit my face? Is it going to hit my neck again?
Using the Winchester like a club. Not the Winchester. Using his long arm like a club. He's holding the barrel and bringing the stock down on the back of Mickey's head. The body again collapses on you in this kind of spongy, weirdly suctioning, wet, yet somehow ephemeral way across your body. And you have so much exposed skin thanks to your undershirt predilection. But you can feel also this hammering in your chest. There's your heartbeat, but there's also the hoofbeats. Mickey's face is right up against your face. The tongue is under your neck, right? But for a second, Mickey's gone limp. And you have a chance.
Reverse positions. I mean, I'm not. Yeah.
He's clearly a superior grappler when conscious.
Reverse positions on him and give him the saddle stance.
All right.
If I can.
I'm gonna try and mount him. All right. So that's also grapple.
I know, but it's. I'm squirmy. It's too much ephemeral dead weight.
So half under, half not under, right?
I'm like halfway turned to the side, trying to push him over and rotate his body, but my hips are not coming out from underneath him. I can't.
Mickey launches a kick from the floor backward toward Kyle and connects. Knocking him back.
Okay. So
he's given up his hold. I'm kind of out of grappling position. So I'm gonna, since he's occupied with the kick, I'm just gonna try and flat out roundhouse him from my back position. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw my upper body up as hard as I can, because I know he's gonna have to try. If from his position, he's gonna have to brace for the kick. Right.
So I'm gonna just kind of throw my body up and just use whatever strength I have into the punch.
Try.
That's a solid roundhouse at an 0-2.
Nice.
Another 5.
Okay. Now.
Shouting for Steve, you son of a bitch.
There is, of course, the opportunity to, hit for damage. But there's also the mechanism of trying to go for the knockout, to hit in the right place. And you rolled an 0-2, so it seems like a fabulous opportunity to try that if you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I got to do something. I have to end the fight now. If he stays on top of me with both his fist and that tongue, it's not going to take much to take me down.
Okay. So I'm looking at the resistance table. All I need from you is a percentile roll. You're comparing your damage to his remaining hit points.
10.
He's not out in a way that you'd expect from a purely mortal fighter, right? He is instead limp and semi-tangible. He's kind of filling the space that Mickey was, but all of his weight leaves your body, but his form is still visible there, but it's edges, it's clearly defined edges of flesh, the roundings of muscle and the shape of skeleton are being lost. The only thing truly sharp in definition is that tongue, that probing, mouth-filled, razor-edged tongue, which is trapped beneath this smoky, translucent, semi-tangible form. Okay? The heat is being leached out of your body by its coldness.
Does he pose an obstruct? Yeah. Does he is he still considered an obstruction? Like, can I move fully to a kneeling position at this point?
You can move. You can get out from underneath him. He's there, yet somehow weirdly not there.
Can I actually? I'm gonna reach out for. Is he's face down?
Face down.
Left hand grabs the. Makes an attempt to grab the hair on the back of his head and just knot it in my fist.
Right. Your fingers are as much in his skull as they are in his hair, but you have a sense of being able to move him.
Good, because I'm gonna.
Bud is saying, "Now, sir, now."
I have no idea what he means. I'm yanking his head back. Right hand's coming back, and the next blow is just going to go trying straight for the back of his head. And I'm just going to be yelling, for Steve, you MF son of a bitch.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty much at this point, I'm at the end of my rope with Mickey O'Shaughnessy the Fist.
He cannot resist. He cannot put up his hands. He cannot move, so that the blows, as many as you like, are raining down. But Lou adds his voice to it. The device, sir. You must ensconce him in the device.
Dragging myself up 1 foot at a time from kneeling to standing, still with his hair wrapped in my hands. I'm going to drag him towards the device as quickly as I can.
His legs are through the floor, and then on the floor, and then through the floor. And Kyle is getting out of the way with a look of horror on his face, and Bud is still mainly chanting, and Lou is still mainly chanting, but that impassive, peaceful look has been replaced by one of earnestness. They want you to understand. And in the living room, that vibration is pulsing and glowing, and you can feel it pumping in you.
Try and grab the, left hand is in the hair, right hand to the back of his pants. And I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to ensconce him, so I try and lift, and fireman's toss him, and I'm aiming for the weird opalescent non-Euclidean shape at the top of this stand.
And O'Shaughnessy is gone.
So my hands are out. As I've just let him go, and 1 minute he's there and then he's not. I collapse down to the ground. Even though, I didn't suffer a wound, the exhaustion of just the fight with this guy, the scramble with him, and the suddenness and abruptness of the action is unlike any fight I've had to fight. It wasn't a stand-up fight. So I just collapse.
Bud and Lou are on you, right? Lou is checking you, right? Feeling.
Yeah.
And Bud is just saying, you did it. You did it. You did it. You beat the fist. You did it.
I give the device the middle finger. It's a behavior abrupt and uncharacteristic at this point, but I'm at my wit's end. I have one last thing to check off my list. And I'm hearing these guys, the jubilation. I appreciate, and I'm kind of trying to get up, 3 position, looking at this thing. I'm going to try and brush Lou, who was checking me over, and just say, there may be some scratches on the back of my neck where that tongue was there for a minute, but there's nothing serious. This is not hospital time. And just go to a kneeling sitting position and look at this device.
The fabric over the tattoo has been burned away. The device, the hum is a lower pitch, and the lights are deeper colors, less random.
So it's definitely easier to, I'm actually trying now I'm not trying to avoid looking at it. So
it's still no easier to figure out.
But I don't have that same sensation I did earlier, where I feel like I'm gonna fall into this thing, or I'm gonna follow Mickey behind this.
It's full.
Looking at Lou and Bud, heave a heavy breath and just kind of look down at the ground and say, "Get this damn thing out of my house."
Yes, sir. We'll dispose of him. Lou holds out his hand.
I shake his hand.
Very proud to make your acquaintance, sir. I'll never forget this.
I'm hearing what he's saying, and I'm trying to still grasp how he could easily and readily seemingly be this loyal. It's not a blank look, but it's quizzical. When he's looking at my face, he can tell it's obvious that I'm questioning what he's really saying.
So he leans in close to your ear. He says, "Ask yourself, how many of the men on this street wouldn't have run?" And they start wrapping the device up in the drop cloth.
Getting out of their way, because at this point I'm probably kneeling on the drop cloth. Get up, stand up. I move to the hallway, looking around for Kyle.
Kyle, who's been watching all of this from the doorway, his hairs must.
Say, "Help me get this tape off," and I start walking towards the kitchen.
Where do you keep your scissors?
Trunk drawer right next to the oven.
Very neat.
Not when you open that drawer, it's not. Kind of, my
The
hands are out.
shears or the scissors?
Shears.
Okay. Have a seat.
They're heavier. They're steel. They're my mom's old tailor's shears. I know she'd get pissed at me if she saw what you're about to do with them, but it's going to be the quickest way to get the tape off.
Okay. Well, tough guy, if I take any skin, don't say anything.
Blank stare.
He starts cutting.
So what do you think now, Miskatonic? It's time for a serious discussion, right? Not so crazy?
Not the normal operation of the Treasury Department as I was prepared for in my training or briefing sessions.
I don't think anything is going to prepare you for something like this. This is all an accident. I stumbled on this. And now I've got a
Well,
Jungian archetype hanging over my head in the Magus.
I'm not entirely sure in this universe of ours that there are any coincidences.
Like walking into the random street of a warehouse or walking in the basement of the random warehouse in the middle of the street, right?
I think
Meeting some guy.
every decision that you've ever made leads to every other decision that you'll ever make.
As he's finishing up with the last hand and kind of turning and going over to the sink, grabbing the soap and saying, "Is this where we have a discussion about determinism and free will? Maybe those religion classes weren't so bad for you after all."
We can have that discussion if you would like. To use a word that your friend Lou might like, I consider myself quite erudite. But do we have to have that discussion?
No, I think we both know where that goes. But do I sound crazy to you now? You're the only person outside of this that I know of, besides me, to see it and live. The murder, the massacre, right? This girl in the park, Steve. And I look at the doors underneath the kitchen sink where the Gladstone bag is and say everything else that's in that bag. What he wanted was inside that bag. He wanted that idol that Steve had. Why? I don't know what connection it's got to him.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Once Lou and Bud are out of our hair, if you wouldn't mind hanging out for a little while, just to make sure that things are calm and kosher. Maybe help me. You don't have to help me bring everything back up from upstairs, but help me get the front room kind of sit back up.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
We can just relax for a minute.
As Lou takes out the last of the toolboxes, there's Agent Thornton, if I might have a moment of your time.
Walk over to him.
He was definitely looking for something.
Oh, yeah, he's been looking for something for a while.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Are you willing to surrender it?
What is it?
He was looking for the stone idol.
Oh, yeah. I think you misinterpreted me. What is it? I know it's a little stone charm of some kind, but
I was confirming, sir.
yeah.
He brightens a little bit at remembering the word. It's a repository where saying the correct word will unleash stored violence and vengeance. Such as what befell Mickey's family in the newspaper.
You're telling me that little thing can do something like that?
Yes, sir.
So now you're asking me to give up probably what is most likely the best weapon I could use in self-defense against something like this thing?
I'm asking if you're willing to surrender it.
And if I'm unwilling,
The decisions are yours, sir.
so if I keep it, can I be taught these words? So that if I need to, come on, you've got to give me something more to go on here. I am working in the dark.
I'm not the one who can teach such things to you, sir. But we both know who could.
I turn and go back into the living room and I say that I'm unwilling to give it up. But you can tell Xavier that he can teach me how to use it if I'm going to defend myself, because there's still a Malone out there somewhere.
Mr. Morgan doesn't want you to worry about Mr. Malone.
And if anything else like this comes after me, are you guys just going to come running out of the woodwork like you did when you pulled me out of the loony van?
I hope so, sir. But I'll pass on your message.
Thank you.
Would you like us to return after... I don't know how long it will take.
Do you guys live in that van? I kind of
No.
look out the, part the curtain and
No.
return, but don't return here immediately. Come back in a couple days, after which I'm supposed to be out of the hospital. And you guys have any idea how they're going to make it look like I'm the one coming out of the hospital? Does this guy look like me? When he said body double, does he look like me? And I'm kind of out of the side of my eye. I'm looking at the spot where Mickey and I were just on the floor, and this insubstantiability thing out of his mouth, imagining that somehow they've got a doppelganger of me at the hospital.
Your own mother wouldn't know the difference, sir.
I look at Kyle, look at Lou, and say, I'm going to want a little bit more than just instructions on how to use that thing. So you let Xavier know that if we're going to continue this relationship, that I'm going to need to have to be educated about some stuff.
All right, sir. I mean, if you wanted the potential value of a second opinion, I don't think that sounds unreasonable at all. I think that would be equitable.
Raising my hand and point at the door, I said, it's about time for you guys to make your egress.
Good night, sir.
Good night, Lou. And you too, bud.
Good night.
Arm on the, door jamb from the hallway to the living room. My head leaning over, rubbing my forehead. I don't know what else to do, Kyle. But I'm definitely going to have to learn a little more about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in my life, I've found that when I'm mostly undressed, with the house a mess, with furniture in random places, and things we don't want anybody to discover just lying around, it's usually exactly when company arrives.
Another coincidence?
So,
I kind of
hear the van pulling away.
Yeah. raising my hand towards the ceiling, saying, "The universe speaking to me about its synchronicity again."
I'm just saying if we're going to clean up, we should clean up.
All right. No, you're right. And walking over to him, put my hand on his shoulder and say, "Thank you, Kyle."
Hey, no problem.
And,
No problem.
kind of try to get some semblance of organization back together. I'm not totally expecting everybody to show up all of a sudden, but just in case, at least
Right.
neaten it and tidy it up.
Right. He's
Everything
looking
that's
at
yeah.
he's looking at the stacks of furniture, right? So like
Yeah.
he's finally undoing the tie. His hair's already gotten messed up, so he's undoing the tie.
Oh yeah, now he undoes the tie. Yeah.
Right. It's like it's no problem at all. It's my pleasure. I mean, I almost consider it to be my duty. And there's the page. And the doorbell rings.
Well, Paige, since you've been keeping it a secret this long, do you mind going ahead and getting the freaking doors? I walk over and start unstacking chairs. We might as well get ready for the rest of the guests to arrive.
Certainly. He goes up and opens the door, and he goes, "Oh, Professor Armitage." He steps back. And Dr. Spinnaker's voice says, "Oh, excuse me, I thought this was Alexander Thornton's residence." "Oh, it is. Come in. You're expected. That's why there's so much space." And he can't help himself. He's just like, "That's why we've cleared so much space." "Coffee, anyone?" And Carol Spinnaker comes into the kitchen area with two older gentlemen, one of whom presumably is a Professor Armitage. And we'll draw a curtain across tonight's events here.
Okay. Yeah, busy night.
Busy night.
Busy night.
Before I forget, defeating the fists. Man to man, fist to fist, bears with it a sanity reward
Okay.
of 2 points.
All right. So it puts me back up to 35. I'm going to have to try and at some point get some rest.
And have more long conversations with Dr. Spinnaker. Or check yourself into Danvers. That's an option.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. And I'm not talking about mentally. I'm talking about physically. I got to try and find, maybe sometime between now and when I'm supposed to see Dad on Friday, I'll actually
week.
rest up and not look so beat up when I show up for the meeting with Dad.
So questions for you. I mean, Lovecraftian writings have all kinds of different things involved. Like there's old books with magical spells in them and chanting in strange languages to have these kind of alien effects. Then we have actual aliens, and we have alien technology, and we have alien visitors, and some of it can seem like it doesn't fit together with our modern sensibilities. And so I find that in these kinds of games, it can be a risk if you introduce something like The device.
Yeah,
So,
the harmonic resonator.
so
Uh,
how was that for you?
no, that's to me, it's perfectly fine. Because things like the Migo brain cases, and
Exactly.
that kind of it all, for me, it all fits together because they are an alien race. There is going to be some unusual form of technology involved. Uh, when you started talking about how they're assembling this device, I mean, that was the thing picturing in the back of my head, because I had just seen From Beyond like 2 weeks ago. And
Right.
so I'm picturing something not with the tuning forks on top, but this same kind of like almost quadrupod device setting up, and kind of like maybe a little tank or something, and then this geometry on top of crystalline prisms in a
Yeah.
non-Euclidean fashion. It fits for me, and it
Good.
also helps that I'm still. I just found Wayne Jude's. He does an audio series of audiobooks for Lovecraft, and so I've been listening to them on my breaks and on in the cars a lot. And we just finished. I just finished Thing on the Doorstep,
Oh, yeah.
and so some of the narration and the language is fresh in my head, because that was like 2 days ago. I just listened to that for about an hour. So even in this situation, the language is in my head. I know
Right.
the
You're
prose
primed.
that's used. Yeah, I'm primed and ready for it.
That's good.
I mean, and I do that kind of coming up to Wednesdays when I know we're definitely going to get solid chance to get together and play, is I want to get my mind in that headspace. So, uh,
Yeah. That's one of the concerns I have, because it's not the thing that you can talk about. It's like, so how do you feel about mixing aliens in with your supernatural investigation? It's like, why are you asking? Are there aliens involved in the supernatural investigation?
yeah, but I mean, it can kind of almost be the same talk people get into about magic and technology. What's the difference between the supernatural and aliens? In the 1920s, the Migo, a member of the Cthulhu mythos, is probably, even though just like the Yithians and that kind of thing, even though they could probably be labeled as alien, they would probably still be considered supra
Right.
natural, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not the spectral kind, right, or the ethereal kind, but it's
Right.
still supernatural.
So, so that was my concern going
Mm.
into today. But the other
The only
concern,
thing for me on the only thing for me that would be jarring in that respect is when you start getting to the outer god level experience,
right?
right? All of a sudden, not inexplicably, but all of a sudden, here's Nodens, right?
Yeah.
When you start including that part of the pantheon in, which is something realistically, as a player and as someone who ran it a long time ago, I never really messed with. It was always very uh
Grounded.
street level hero. Yeah, very street level,
Grounded in unreality.
grounded in reality. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah. So,
And the other least place that I have the most experience with is actually playing in the Dreamlands, right? Uh, which is, it's kind of hard to get people into it, because kind of it does change the way you play
it does
a
a
bit,
lot.
you know?
Yeah. And especially if people's real exposure to the Dreamlands is like the Titus Crow stuff from Brian Lumley,
Yeah,
which takes things in a very heroic direction.
yeah.
So, yeah. My other concern was one of how to make Alex Thornton feel like he's waiting, without making Brian Gregory have to wait too long. Yeah.
Uh, so I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about uh, a buddy of mine from drama class in high school is in Hollywood, and he was back here. We went to the Renaissance Fair a few years back, and I remember having a conversation with him about, so what do they ask you to do when you go in for an interview? And literally, one of the guys had asked him to wait. That was the only line he was given. So he comes into the room, but he is told to wait. And he just kind of stared at me for a little bit, seeing if I could process that idea as someone who hasn't been in an acting class or a drama class since high school. And I did ask him, I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, think about it. What is it like to wait? What do you do when you wait? How do you make it look like you're waiting when you have no props or, you only have a chair to work with? So yeah, exactly. And he basically did the same thing. He even did the newspaper flick, I've got the newspaper up in front of me, so challenge away, Grizzly. I'm more than happy to have something like that. And for me, on my end as the player, it does help build a little bit of that suspense. It does help build that anticipation,
Yeah, where am I going to be when the inevitable happens?
Yeah, at what point will the interruption to the waiting happen?
Right.
And I'm perfectly fine with it.
So, and to, for posterity, the mechanism at play wasn't story beats or my sense of drama or watching the clock or any of those things. It again was a luck roll. Will Alex have completed the stages that he needs to complete at the point where he shows up, right? So we have a good luck roll for Alex, then the device is set up and activated.
Yeah.
Versus the bad case for Alex, something along these lines is not prepared.
Waited too long to do the blood thing, and I remember we were supposed to do that. Oh, pop, here he is. Yeah, that'd be great. Meanwhile, I'm struggling with him, one punch over this way, and I'm trying to put my hand on
Right. Which for some reason has just reminded me of an old Peanuts cartoon where Charlie Brown runs away from home to coach a Little League baseball team in another area, right? He's living in a cardboard box and the little kids who play in the baseball team are feeding him. It's like, Charles, or no, they call him Sir. Sir, I brought you some cereal. He says, oh, that's very nice, thank you. He says, hurry up and eat, Charles. The milk is running through my fingers. But for some reason, those two ideas are connected in my head. But the very helpful Bud and Lou, who are not idiots. They're they simply have a different life experience and different education, and but they present themselves as very earnest, which can be disconcerting, I think.
Well, and I hope that came out from Alex's point of view. How can these guys be so trustful? How can they be so loyal?
Yeah.
Because this, even though the action is kind of, I don't want to say literally flash in the pan, but it's very condensed, very direct. The fiction outside of that, were you anticipating that Kyle was a page? Maybe that's a little bit too much of a peek behind the curtain. But were you what did you think when I had asked for Kyle to be here?
I thought it was really interesting. I felt that you had enjoyed spending time more with Prince than Winchester. So I thought it was really interesting that you asked for Kyle. And I thought, well, maybe he's just alternating. I'll spend a little time with Kyle, I'll spend a little time with Tyler, and I'll spend a little bit of time with Kyle. And so it was just his turn. Right.
In a sense, because we took Prince to go see the Driscoll, right?
Right.
And so I got to see him in that setting. Whereas, he did show up at Steve's place, but that was kind of an after the fact. That was more of a shoe leather type of action.
Right. And he didn't actually get into the
he
crime
was
scene.
more of a kind of a you take care of the landlord and gather information. And it is a bit of that, okay, I want to see him in my office. Now I want to see him in my office, except now it's like, I want to see you in this stressful situation. Okay, let's ramp up the stressful situation for the next guy.
Yeah. So I had given you notice earlier in the session, after you were paying attention to him, right? How can this guy be so calm? Like, what's going on with this guy?
Yeah.
And he said he just seems ready, right? And then later I let you know he hasn't asked you about these tattoos that keep coming up in conversation.
Yeah, I know you said that, but I wasn't gonna try and work in oh, hey, by the way, this is what they were talking about. So that was a comment, that was some commentary that I just kind of let it slide, and I say, well, let's see where this goes.
Sure.
If this is going to be at some point in the future that either I or Bud or Lou will show him, or he will see it for some reason or another. I did not honestly anticipate. I was really believing that Kyle was just some schmo who was getting a chance to step his foot in the dog pile.
There were a couple of things that I've put in as really tiny hints that are only something that we could look at in retrospect, and probably if we were playing all of this together in 4 or 6 hour blocks.
Yeah.
But he tells you about Bill. That was also today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would he do that? Would he realistically do that? And some other things at the house. And that episode will be the one that's appearing this week.
Where we get in and go inside and first see Steve on the floor.
Yeah, you have a long conversation with Gabriel Washburn.
Yeah.
And buy your first packages of the exciting licorice-flavored blackjack gum.
Yes. It's excellent bribery material for kids. I mean, come on. Yeah. What kid wouldn't want some blackjack?
Right. So, yeah, those were my... that's the extent of my preparation, right?
Yeah.
Which techniques do I want to use to allow time to pass?
Mm-hmm.
Without using some of these other techniques like watching the clock or rolling dice and seeing, when it's going to happen and that kind of stuff. So that was a thing. And then there was, how am I going to describe this device? And should I or should I not? Should I keep it all in the same kind of feel with arcane books and weird tattoos and vaguely philosophical conversations, or should I, incorporate more of the mythos? And I thought, well, this is a pretty expansive campaign, so let's bring in more of the mythos and hope that isn't jarring.
And I hope now that we're session 7, right? I hope that you do feel comfortable pushing yourself, because I'm more than willing to have whatever you want to try and mess with techniques wise, whether that's, we have a little slight discussion saying, hey, we've talked about this kind of thing in the past. Let's take a look at it. Something like this may or may not come up in the next few sessions. You don't have to say this session, but in the next few sessions, this type of thing may come up, and not in a way to say, let's talk about it and have a discussion whether or not we want to include it. I'm more than happy for you to try and push, on the experience of a solo player.
Cool.
Because I hope you get the idea that I'm very receptive to whatever you're going to kind of throw at me.
Yeah.
So.
But there's always those questions of taste. You can be watching this really cool series, and then you get to episode 4, and you're like, I'm not going to watch any more of these.
Totally. But I'm hoping for the Fallout series. But I that's I totally get why you would ask the question about the device, the technology thing in Call of Cthulhu. How comfortable are you with that kind of thing? Totally fitting. And that's why I mentioned the thing about, oh yeah, Nodens and the, Dreamlands and that kind of thing. That's where my lack of knowledge and lack of experience would probably butt up against the, oh man, all of a sudden it's not just an elder god, but an outer god, kind of level of activity. Other than that, I can't think of much other than the comment that I made very early on, I think session 1 or session 2, about wouldn't it be nice to have the story told through the empathetic eye of the cultist who wants to be?
Yeah. Yeah. So has that allure become more plausible?
Yeah. Once I was told I have a weapon in my possession, a way to defend myself against whatever the heck this is that all of a sudden has cropped up in my life by accident, why would I disarm myself? Why? Now that I know about it, I can't not know about it anymore. And there is a need to understand and know how to defend, or how can it be stopped?
Yeah. Why was Mickey looking for it?
Maybe something was after Mickey, or he is using it to defend himself in some way, shape, or form.
Does Mickey know how to use it?
Yeah.
Did Steve? How did Steve get it?
I almost picture it the way Steve may have come into possession by it is it would be one of those accidental left out situation or left in sight situation where you see something. I mean, Steve, after all, was making copies of books and taking them out of, his place of work. So maybe he, not saying he would have been a kleptomaniac, but
maybe a little light-fingered.
He could have been a little light-fingered. And if it was somebody's possession that they saw as being valuable, whether or not he saw them with it in hand, he could make the connection and say, well, maybe it's worth something. He was, after all, down on his luck, living in a flop house, looking for a way out. So thievery would be an option, for someone in that position. Yeah. I'm just glad I could get a punch in for Steve.
Multiple punches. While your fingers were in the man's cranium, kind of.
Yes. Tangled in the gray matter.
Yes. So to be clear, in case it gets confusing later, the sanity reward that you got of 2 points negated the sanity loss that I would have normally been telling you at this time. So you lost sanity and got a sanity reward, which turned out to cancel those losses and actually replace 2 lost points. So that flush of victory and manly pride and all that stuff. Ending a threat, keeping the streets clean.
I don't know. It's a little weird. Call of Cthulhu is not. What feels a little weird about playing this is that it's not necessarily a game where this is probably the longest solo session I've ever had, and it's not the kind of game where I don't want to call them lackeys,
right? Minions
or henchmen, or henchmen,
servants.
But you know what I mean.
Yep.
It's never really been a game where that has been a part of it, but with Lou and Bud and apparently Kyle, kind of makes me wonder about Prince. How many plants are there in the room?
Yep.
And which of them are thriving on the activity that's going on.
I think it plays in well to the theme of paranoia. And who's watching me? How do they know where I am?
Well, it's perfect. Yeah, right. If Kyle is one, why wouldn't Prince be one? would be kind of the train of thought. I mean, he obviously has people watching me, or had people watching me. For all I knew, Lou or Bud could have been the guy down the street a few nights before crap started to really hit the fan, who was keeping an eye on my house, for all I know.
Right.
You know?
Wait a minute. The Morgans took over the waterfront 2 weeks ago. Kyle started working 2 weeks,
2 weeks ago. Yeah. And that's, you know, had I been more OCD with my notes,
but
I'm
not
doing
everything
good.
means
I know.
what
I know.
but it could mean that.
If only I was using OBS on my end to record the session so I could watch it the past time, you know. Right? Get my notebook out and fill in all the blanks, get a transcription so I can read the text afterwards.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you'll see, instead of this background, I'll have, 3x5 cards and string and pins and
That's what going
stuff
across
all
the
over
room.
the back. Yeah. Welcome to my solo session. Here's everything that has transpired so far. How do you feel about Kyle now? Because one of the things I had asked in the past was, when you had a chance to really work Bill, and you'd had a chance to really kind of do Prince. So how does Kyle feel as a skin, as it were?
The revelation, right, was interesting, right? Because everything that he's told you can be verified. Right.
Yeah.
So he's a pretty honest fellow. Right. So the more stuff that you were telling him and then checking in with him to see, does this seem crazy? How crazy does this seem?
Yeah.
The more guilty I was feeling of not saying, wait, before you tie yourself into more knots, I'm one of those guys too, right?
Okay.
But
it's excellent, though. It's excellent.
Yeah. So, but at the end, after getting through all of it and flush with victory and everything, there was just no way that he couldn't reveal himself.
Yeah. I mean, if he's given the same leeway, right, of determinism, he is making his own choices, so to speak. Yeah. No, it's I kind of was. I really was. I was thinking. I'm worried about Kyle because I made it out. I was trying to make that obvious that I while I'm reaching out for help, I'm also simultaneously worried that I'm going to pull somebody in that is going to get killed as a casualty,
right?
As an innocent,
and that still could have happened, right?
The
what Bud and Lou didn't really make clear is they had the ability to kind of contain Mickey, but they didn't really have the ability to defend themselves in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
But once he was in, he couldn't get out. So, yeah.
Again, I think it's still building, because I know the next steps are Xavier. And the book. Those are the two, for what I'm thinking right now, his two big loose ends. The missing book still needs to be found. And I need to know and understand more about Xavier.
Right.
I can't shy behind my timidity anymore.
That's right. No more pussyfooting around. None of this subtle investigation.
Bill, I'm taking over.
Right. Okay. Good.
You have any other questions?
I don't. Those are my questions, I think.
Okay.
So, be interesting to see if the neighbors noticed anything. I'll take care of that using my good friend the dice later on.
Yeah. Luckily, there was no gunfire.
No gunfire.
No gunfire.
Some suspicious crashes around dinner time, but that could be anything, especially with,
The plumbing man.
the plumbing men there. Take a note of their number. They were willing to work late.
Very late.
Right.
Any thoughts about more than they brought in?
Any thoughts about Carol Spinnaker showing up with some experts?
Was not anticipating a hey, the gang's all here kind of day, but it may be a difficult conversation to thread with Kyle present, because the conversation with Spinnaker is more along that lines of, I need to investigate Xavier.
Right.
This is the first suspect that I have that just kind of steps out, literally out from behind the curtain. Here I am in the basement of a warehouse, presented with this guy. And that's still part of that ongoing paranoia is, how far can I speak out before someone like Lou or Bud, or now Kyle, if they're present, will say something or do something?
Right. Those are good questions.
Yes. Oh, definitely. There are definitely boundaries to be pushed on. So out of curiosity, I don't know if it was supposed to be a hint, but what was the actual phrasing? It wasn't, it's just too much, but it was definitely phrased in a very similar way. I just kind of took it as, and it felt like
it was disconcerting. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
An appropriate point to make a sanity roll.
Right, and then you caught it and you made the sanity roll. Otherwise, I would have repeated myself, except saying, and it's too much, But,
okay.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to listen for a little bit more of that this time. I was thinking that there would be something as soon as Mickey shows up. At some point, there's going to be a sand roll.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see it beforehand with the device.
And if Mickey were less human, I would have had a role for him again. And when his more vampiric nature made itself evident, I would have had a role for him. Except at that point, you were fighting for your life, and you're already in a fight or flight situation. There's already stress, and I think it's enough, right? I don't need to add that on top. I feel, had it been more of a horrific, facing off against a Cthulhu monster kind of thing, then when it shows up, sanity roll. When it does something horrifying, then sanity roll. That's a part and parcel of that experience. But this one not so much. The machine, I felt the one sanity roll was enough, right? Rather than and now it's kind of sucked away or contained, this whole body somehow inside its frame. It wasn't necessary, I felt, for another roll. We've already had that impact.
So with the fight even though there wasn't starting from that part where we're looking at the device, there's still waiting time in there, and then he shows up and the fight occurs and ends. How did you really get the feeling that whole sense of loss of sand was still there?
Yeah,
I
actually,
mean,
we have this. We have playing on your narration. We have the sense of lost time, enough lost time that the guys who are busy doing other things come over and say, hey, you know, like, are you, you know, are you in there? Like, focus, you know.
Yeah.
And we have two distinct bouts of cleaning the kitchen, and compulsive cleaning is often a sign of stress and whatnot. So, and then suddenly Mickey's on you. Right now, we've heard from the beginning that you're a defensive fighter, right?
Yeah.
Right. And we've heard from the beginning that he's very offensive, right? And so you both revealed a different side of yourselves. You know, he's a highly skilled
Yeah.
fighter, and this is one of the things I love about BRP is like we can basically talk our way through the entire combat. No initiative rolls needed. You know,
Yeah.
with two combatants, once we establish, you know, who's first, which I already knew, right? Then it's just, you know, this punch is coming in. Say, oh, I'm gonna dodge, or oh, I'm gonna block, right? Just natural, normal language. You know, I'm going to use my dodge maneuver. Doesn't ever need to happen, right? I dodge, right? Oh, I block.
Yeah. I mean, in that first set, right? I mean, both of us being trained fighters, we know that there's not, there's rarely ever an either or when you're doing making a combat maneuver. Usually it's multi-function.
Right.
And I hope the language used kind of helped you get an idea for what I was doing too. You know, I want to get out this angle of incidence. I want to get outside his trajectory. For me, what I really wanted to have happen was, because I knew he was going to come with a high level of aggression. And if the fight's going to go bad, which it felt like it was there for a while, when he starts to go to grappling, I'm like, okay, here it comes.
It was really over, right? If you hadn't called Kyle.
Well, and that's why I backed out into the hallway. You know, because I knew that there was no way, if he did get the tongue on, you know, stuck on me, that I was going to be able to do a whole lot. Because I mean, you know, from last time, we're talking half my hit points were gone, right? Yeah. So all it was going to take was one decent punch and one strike of the tongue, and I'm out on the floor. So I was glad he was in the hallway. That makes a spot for that I can fall back to, and that's why I wanted to open that distance. Now, had I not been all goofy footed, I may have gotten out of the way. It might have been a lot better, because then I can, you know, try and use this, you know, do the old barroom fight where I'm ramming you through my, you know, spindles of my stairwell onto my stairs, you know. But even then, that would have been a grappling roll, which I totally suck at.
Yeah, so far. One of the things I like about the language is, you know, we can communicate success and failure just by using the word try. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if I punch, that means I rolled a success. I try to punch means I rolled a failure. I block, success. I try to block, failure. And
that's very straightforward.
And then it can just be, you know, I go, you go. We're rolling the dice as we go. And then when we get those special rolls, impales and the like, or if you remember the time he dodged into your punch.
Yeah, a fumble, a failure.
I rolled 100. That was exciting. Yeah. So
as we started to get kind of like through the midway point of the fight and towards the end, that's when it was, because I was kind of starting to get in my wits' end, and I was kind of really worried. Once he was on top of me, I was like, this is going to be it.
Right.
So I wanted that sense of desperation. Yeah, I wanted that sense of desperation and anger. because here I am now, I'm trapped under the sky. This is going to be it. And I had been mentioning in the past about, this sense of vengeance. And so that was the other part that I was really kind of
Yeah.
come through, is that, this isn't for me. This is for Steve.
Right, little Steve, who could never strike back himself.
Yeah.
Right. Towel boy, water boy, whipping boy.
Yeah, definitely whipping boy.
Yeah, so it was good. I liked it. Yeah.
Oh, I did watch your last video where you had the discussion with what's his name again? Krusty?
Crispy. A two hour and 10-minute discussion.
Yeah, where you were using the clips from one of the sessions. Yeah.
So he chose your session with Carol Spinnaker. Yeah.
What else did you guys talk about? Anything else from that session? Or was what we saw in the video pretty much it?
That's what we talked about. Yeah, we had a 2-hour window to have a 1-hour conversation, and instead had a 2-hour conversation.
Nice. One of the things that he had mentioned that I was a little bit surprised by was the note taking. When you're talking about how, if you see his eyes going off at the side of the screen, just so he's taking notes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, I was like, man, it's an investigation game. How could you not take something?
Yeah,
it seems to make sense.
Not a lot of people, in my experience, not a lot of people do. There's usually somebody.
Yeah.
And then once somebody, let's say, distinguishes themselves as a note taker, then I find that pretty much kills note taking from anybody else in the group. They all start to rely on the person who's taking notes, which I try to discourage.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you watch Ivan running us through Blade Runner, there's a moment where we enter the crime scene, right, and the description starts to flow of the crime scene. We see me leaning back, and we see Eloy leaning forward, and there's this furious note taking, which then got distilled into a PDF that we shared internally of our police report. And so all the subsequent, I haven't released the subsequent videos yet, but all of the subsequent videos started with a recap based on the police reports from the shift before. So it's pretty interesting that way. But yeah, we grew up taking notes, but most of the people that I've played with, even when it's pointed out, let's keep a file of the handouts, if there are any. Let's keep a file of the notes. A lot of people rely on their memory, and then things get really foggy.
So I know one of the things that we've talked about in the past too was this envisioning what's going on, right? So was there one particular spot or a group of spots where the imagination, the visualization kind of coalesced together for you at this point about what was going on in the house?
Oh, there's in the house specifically, a lot of it, because it's your house. So I don't want to tell you what the house is like. I have been telling you what the Treasury office is like. That's a place where you work, where you may not have access to every place, where there's different offices that you can't just walk in, right? So I'm taking lead on description of the office, but you might tell me where the water cooler is and that kind of stuff, right? But this is your house. So how exactly is this house laid out? I've chosen not to imagine it. I know where the stairs are, right? I know where the phone is. These are places that we've talked about. I understand the relation between the upstairs bedroom and the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. But this was the first time that we've really moved around the house with intent to be in the house. The other times you've been in a panic looking out the windows.
Yeah.
So it's like this window, this window, this window, this. So the rooms have been in darkness in my imagination, and you've just been like looking out behind the curtains or through the shades, and then okay, there's no one out there.
Neighbor. Sneaking out from my blinds. Did you get a good sense of what the first floor may look like?
Yeah, I've actually been in that house many times in my life.
Where you come in the front door, it's got that the living room kind of sticks out a little bit into the front porch. When you come in, there's that short entryway.
Yeah.
Closet to your right, your coat closet. Just immediately after that is the stairwell that goes up to the upstairs. Yep. Straight ahead of you is the shotgun to the back into the kitchen. You keep walking forward, and there's that entryway, the not so much an open floor plan, but a circular floor plan between the living room, hallway, dining room, kitchen setup. Yeah. Now, no direct access from the kitchen to the dining room in this one, but it is just a yard or two right down the hallway.
Yeah.
And so when we were doing that, when we were waiting, I was thinking, well, how can I fill this in? And I was like, well, what does the house look like to me? So the only thing I hadn't thought of was like, okay, where do you go to get to the basement? And then it immediately was like, well, why doesn't it make sense? You just go downstairs underneath the steps where the steps go up. So there's a doorway, right? That was the last little spot in that hallway that I had actually in my mind where I placed something. Okay. I was like, okay, that's where the door is. Like just before you get to the kitchen. So
yeah. What color is the house? In the picture that you sent, it's yellow, but in
my mind, it's just a white house.
A white house.
No, a white house. Same style of hedge down that one side, that is the fence between myself and my neighbor on that side. It reminds me a lot of the houses in St. Louis where you can literally almost lean out your window and touch the house next door to you. That's how close we are.
Yeah.
Little tiny square backyard with attached garage, not unlike the house I had in St. Louis.
Right.
So it's got that kind of S type setup where you go in, here's the driveway, it goes straight towards the garage, but then you S over, here's the yard, and it goes down to the alleyway. Yeah, behind the house, or if there's an alleyway between the houses.
All right.
But I mean, I have a pretty good idea. I feel comfortable in this house. And like you said, it's a house I've seen before. I've been in that house, or a house very similar in style. And having studied architecture and drafting in high school, the floor plan is something that's very quick for me to fill out.
Right.
Your 2-story, would say it's not mid-century, but early arts and crafts style.
Right.
A little bit bigger than a bungalow.
Yep.
Stone foundation underneath, the rock foundation, not a,
Definitely.
Yeah.
With a hastily installed, at some point, maybe oil heater.
Still got a coal chute.
Maybe coal. Yeah, maybe still. Yeah. Perhaps you're listening to the radio as they advertise, buy blue coal, the highest quality anthracite. Yes. Ask your local coal dealer.
Tired of that sooty appearance? Replace your old coal boiler with a brand new high technology or a high-end oil.
That's right. Ask for a free quotation today. So, yeah, great stuff.
How are your other sessions getting along?
Well, in what way?
Well, because I don't watch the latest ones that drop for Ivan and Brian. So when I see a new one come out, I hover over the thumbnail to see who is in the session.
Who's in it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a quick code. When it says session and number, their sessions are green. Yours are yellow.
Okay.
And
I didn't notice that.
Craig's, when we get to his, which, let's see, one of your sessions is appearing this week. It will be session 12, and then we will have session 13, which is back to Ivan and Brian Courtmarsh.
Yeah.
And that is the end of their active investigation. And it's also the start of the next active investigation. If this were a campaign run in a different way, that would be the end of the story, and the next adventure would start after that. But it's not, right? So there's no like break in time, and they're still conducting the same kind of research and stuff that they've been doing all along. But anyway, that's a hard break, and that allows me to put Craig Shipman's first session in, and because all of those sessions happen around the same time, and then the next one will be the next one of you in the series. So that's
when
12, 13, 14, 15, and
wow, it's still a hard thing for me to wrap my head around.
There's still quite a few that haven't appeared.
When we were texting through Facebook the other day, and you made the comment about, I kind of took it as a joke, but that they were hoping that the law was going to somehow come and save them. So far I know there's been slight brushes with the group, but has there been any like direct effect? Like, because that happened over there, it's going to push events in this group over here in a direction for a minute or two before that kind of takes hold over here. You know what I mean?
Yes, there have been secondary effects, let's say, of actions at various points in the campaign.
So will this take some pressure off of them? Because I think their only run-in was when Brian was accosted by, was it Brian's character, right, if I remember correctly, was accosted by Mickey?
Ivan was accosted by Mickey, and then he was rescued by the rampaging attack of the antique dealer. Get your hands off him, you ruffian! It's awesome. Yes. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that, from their perspective, they can't know had. And likewise from yours. But yeah, from my position, I can see some of how these things connect, and as more of these sessions get released, it'll become, I think, obvious to the viewing audience as well.
Yeah.
And,
it's good stuff, man. I have to say it again. Unfortunately, I do have to I got some stuff I'm going to have to take care of for my truck today. Yep.
It is time to go.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you running these. I think it's
pleasure.
Awesome.
My pleasure. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Take care.
Take care, man.